Call the meeting of the Board of Adjustment for July the 9th to order, please. Roll call.
Swigert.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Russo.
Okay, the first order of business is the recitation of a statement regarding the role of the board and the process we're undergoing. Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body created by the City of Iowa City according to state statutes. The board's purpose is to decide on applications for variances from the zoning ordinance, appeals of decisions of city officials, and applications for special exceptions requested under the zoning ordinance. Board of Adjustment is an independent volunteer board made up of the Iowa City residents and is not part of the city administration. We are assisted in our work by the city attorney's office and by the planning staff. Prior to this meeting, board members received the materials submitted by the applicants, the staff reports reviewing the application, and any correspondence submitted by members of the public. Board members have not discussed the application or its merits with each other, the staff, the applicant, or any other member of the public in advance of this meeting. All consideration and discussion by the board takes place in open meeting here tonight, where we also have an opportunity to hear from the public. Board bases its decisions on facts and evidence presented by City Code or allowed by City Code, presented in open meeting. Concrete, concise, and truthful testimony helps us a great deal in our decision making. We ask that if you wish to speak, that you come to the podium, print your name and address on the sign-in sheet, and speak clearly into the microphone so your testimony can be heard by all present and by our minute taker, as all testimony becomes part of the public record. We ask that the proceedings be orderly and that when you are testifying, you address your remarks to the board. If this hearing becomes lengthy, we may ask that testimony be focused on new facts or on information not already presented. The order of proceedings for each application will be an oral report by staff summarizing the issues of the case and staff's recommendations, an opportunity for the applicant to speak, an opportunity for any other interested party to speak for or against the application, an opportunity for final statements and arguments by the applicant and staff, and the board will discuss the issues and evidence, state its findings, and vote on a motion. Motions are always made in the affirmative. With that, I'd like to start with special exception item EXC 25-0003. Application submitted by Jeff Clark requesting two special exceptions to allow ground floor residential in a commercial zone and a parking reduction in a central business zone CB10 for the property located at 17 and 23 South Gilbert Street, EXC 25-0003. We'll have the staff report first.
You can open the public hearing.
I'm sorry. Public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the board. Ann Russett with Neighborhood and Development Services. As the Chair mentioned, this is a special exception application. The applicant is actually requesting two special exceptions. One is for the allowance of residential uses on the ground floor of the building, and the second is a parking reduction. This is for the property that is just up the street on the northwest corner of Gilbert and East Washington. Here's the aerial map of the subject property, and here is a zoning map. The property is zoned CB10, which is Central Business District Zone. So as I mentioned, there are two special exceptions. One's for that ground floor residential, and the other is for a parking reduction. The property is a mixed-use structure. There's ground floor commercial on the Washington Street side of the building, and then there's residential on the upper floors. In terms of the city's parking regulations, buildings built on or before December 31st, 2008, the parking is required for residential uses after the first 10 bedrooms, and 0.5 parking spaces are required for each additional bedroom beyond 10. So the building, although it has no parking on the site, the building is built from property line to property line. It does have credit for one parking space, and the proposal would require two parking spaces. The additional residential units would require two additional parking spaces, but they are requesting that that be reduced to 0. Again, this is a CB10 zone. This is our downtown zoning district. It's meant to allow intense mixed-use development. Surface parking is not allowed, and commercial uses do not require parking in this zone. The property was built in 1899 as a factory and then converted to a hotel in 1922. It is significant for its role in the history of Iowa City education, industry, and pharmacy. It's a contributing structure in the Iowa City Downtown Historic District, which was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 2021. The property is also eligible to be designated as a local historic landmark. The property was developed prior to the existing zoning, which is the CB10 zone. And again, the applicant is seeking to allow 2 ground floor residential units and 100% parking reduction to protect the building's historic character. So here's just a couple photographs of the building. You can see that commercial use at the bottom and then the residential uses above. The proposed residential uses would actually be on this side of the building, on the Gilbert Street side, in the ground floor and the first floor in this location here. So the role of the Board of Adjustment is to approve with conditions, or deny the application. And there are specific standards and general standards that need to be considered, and I'll go through each one of those. First, we'll start with the exception for residential uses on the ground floor in a commercial zone. So the first finding is related to whether the property is located in an existing historic district overlay zone, which it is not, so this criteria is not applicable. The second condition, the second criteria is that the proposed dwellings will not significantly alter the overall commercial character of the subject zone. The CB10 zone is intended to accommodate a wide range of retail, service, and residential uses. Private off-street parking is strictly regulated in this zone in order to preserve valuable land for active building uses and to maintain a pedestrian-oriented streetscape. The ground floor residential uses will fill the commercial spaces located on the Gilbert Street side of the building. These existing commercial spaces have remained largely vacant over the past 10 years. The commercial use and storefront at the corner of Washington and Gilbert will remain unaltered, so there will still be an active commercial presence on that corner, which will help activate that pedestrian streetscape. The conversion to residential requires the addition of 2 parking spaces. And then the third criteria is also related to whether the property is in a historic district overlay zone, which it is not. So this criteria is also not applicable. So moving on to the second request, which is the parking reduction for unique circumstances. The criteria here is that where it can be demonstrated that a specific use has unique characteristics such that the number of parking or stacking spaces required is excessive, or will reduce the ability to use or occupy a historic property in a manner that will preserve or protect its historic, aesthetic, or cultural attributes, the board may grant a special exception to reduce the number of required parking spaces up to 50%, and for properties that are listed in the National Register, up to 100%. Which is the request here, since this property is listed in the National Register and is a contributing property to the Downtown Historic District. So our findings are that the property is listed as a contributing property in the Downtown Historic District, which is listed in the National Register. It's also individually listed in the National Register and eligible for being designated as a local historic landmark. The building was constructed in 1899, and as I mentioned earlier, it takes up the entire property. No parking is provided on the property. The property currently has 12 bedrooms, which would require 1 parking space today, and that parking is a legal non-conforming situation, so they can continue to operate as is with that legal non-conforming situation. There are 4 new bedrooms that are being proposed on the ground floor, which requires 2 parking spaces. Surface parking, again, is not permitted in this zone, and accommodating parking would require significant alterations to this historically significant structure, which would diminish or remove all historic integrity. A 100% parking reduction will help preserve and protect the property's historic attributes, because providing parking will require significant alterations to the structure. The parking reduction will also allow the current vacant space to be utilized, which has been vacant for around 10 years. In terms of the general criteria, the first criteria is that the specific proposed exception will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, comfort, or general welfare. And staff finds that the existing development will not be altered, as all work will be interior renovations. Without a parking reduction, redevelopment of the vacant commercial space to residential will require the property to accommodate parking, which would not be possible on-site or within the street. The addition of residential units will further the intent of this zone by converting currently unused space into residential units, increasing density, and encouraging pedestrian interaction in our vibrant downtown. Without a parking reduction, providing parking for the residential use would again require structural alterations, which would damage the historic building. And access to the surrounding properties will not be affected. The second criteria is that the exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity or substantially impair property values. The proposed renovations and parking reduction will not impact the ability of neighbors to utilize and enjoy their properties, nor will it negatively impact property values. Additional traffic is not likely to be generated by the proposed conversion to residential, as they will utilize vacant commercial spaces which do not require parking, and are proposing to reduce the parking requirement from 2 to 0, aligning with the existing conditions on the site today. The proposed renovations would reinvest in underutilized vacant commercial spaces to provide housing for the community. The third criteria is that the establishment of the special exception will not impede the normal and orderly development of the surrounding property. And the surrounding property is already fully developed with a mix of commercial and residential uses. The residential units proposed will occupy the existing structure that has been in the neighborhood since 1899 and will provide services that will not substantially impact the development or improvement of surrounding properties. The site, again, currently does not have any parking, so the existing conditions will not change with this request. The fourth criteria is that adequate utilities, roads, drainage, and have been or are being provided. The subject property is already developed. All utilities, streets, drainage have already been established within this neighborhood. There's pedestrian access along the sidewalk on East Washington and South Gilbert, and the site is also within walking distance of transit. The fifth criteria is that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress or egress designed to minimize traffic congestion. The existing site does not have any vehicular access, and none is being proposed. So no impacts on vehicular traffic congestion are proposed as part of this exception. No changes are being proposed to the existing sidewalk or street, and additional parking would impact traffic flow for surrounding developments at a busy intersection. Parking reduction would ensure existing conditions are met and limit potential traffic impacts. The sixth criteria is that, except for the specific regulations and standards applicable to the exception being considered, the project complies with our zoning regulations. Staff finds that the subject property meets the requirements of the base zone with the exception of open space. And that is a legal non-conforming issue that may remain. And with this proposed exception, that legal non-conforming situation will not be expanded. The seventh criteria is that the exception is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan's future land use map shows this area as general commercial. The property is also located in the downtown district, which has master plan objectives to protect historic character and key buildings and maintain a balance of uses and provide residential uses. The comprehensive plan's vision includes investing in the neighborhoods that are closest to major employers in the city to preserve opportunities for people to live close to work, school, shopping, promoting walking and bicycling, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. Additionally, the proposed exception would provide downtown housing and opportunities for people to live close to work, and the reduction in parking would align with the plan's vision for maintaining historic resources and promoting alternative modes of transportation. Staff recommends approval of EXC 25-0003 to 1, allow ground floor residential along South Gilbert Street in a commercial zone while maintaining the commercial space along East Washington Street, and 2, allow a 100% parking reduction in a CB10 zone for the property located at 17 and 23 South Gilbert Street in order to accommodate 2 additional residential units. And with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from the board for the staff?
Yes. So I understand right now there are 12 bedrooms in the building, and there's no parking for any of them. So is that correct?
That's correct.
So at this point, the apartments that are already there do not have parking, so having these 2 additions would be the same as what is already there?
Yes.
Okay.
Paula? I have a few questions. Is this the first such application to convert commercial to residential downtown?
You know, I'm not sure the answer to that question. We do have commercial buildings that are occupied by residential uses that may have received a special exception before my time with the city. I would need to look into that.
Okay, so there are, downtown currently has ground floor residential properties.
Yes.
Can you name a few?
Yeah, the one up the street, actually across from Ecumenical Towers, it's, I don't know the address. It looks almost like a Freemasons building.
The old Press Citizen building?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, that
Yes,
was-
that has residential, the entire building is residential,
Yeah, I was going to say the
believe.
entire
Yeah.
building was designed to be residential that way. I mean, converted.
Converted to
all to
residential, but
residential one
originally
time.
it was a non-residential
Okay.
building.
Okay, am I just thinking anything comparable to this kind of application where it's an existing commercial, comes in, it's underutilized or vacant, when we convert it to ground floor residential?
The other building that I'm thinking of is the old Carnegie Library, which is across the street from the public library on Lynn Street. That has ground floor residential uses in it.
Okay, was that owned by the city and converted, or was that private?
I think it was
conversion?
private.
Private, okay. So, just for my own clarification, commercial designation includes food, retail, professional offices, all sorts of uses under the umbrella of commercial. Okay.
Yes.
Has this particular property, ever been used by the city for offices?
Not that I'm aware of.
I believe it has. I believe
Okay.
it was used as a housing authority back in, that would have been probably the 1990s.
Okay. Yeah, I go back that far. Okay. Are commercial tax rates higher than multifamily rental tax rates?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know.
I'm just thinking if the same pieces of property were used differently, if it was residential, would be taxed lower than a commercial use? That's the question.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. We're talking about a special exception here, which are permitted, and the language, I think, in the report was the city may grant the special exception. Are there any kind of clear guidelines for denial of a special exception request?
For this case, in terms of specific criteria, it's that it would degrade the commercial character of the neighborhood, of the district. And what staff has found is that they're maintaining commercial uses within the building.
Okay. I think I'm going back to my question about city's ability to deny a request, because the request is basically based on one criteria, which is underuse of the current commercial zoning. So we're going to convert it to residential. I mean, is that basically the case here?
Well, there's also the general approval criteria as well, which should be considered by the board.
Let me ask you this. On page 3 of the report, it says the properties have remained largely empty over the last 10 years. And on page 4, the report says the commercial space has been vacant for around 10 years. So my question in general is, do those two things mean the same thing? And if so, what? What are the uses that we're looking at here to justify the change? How long has it been vacant intermittently? Has it been consistently vacant? What's the history of the property that would justify changing the use? Because if there was just some sort of guideline here, then some other downtown commercial property could say, I've been vacant a year, so I want to go to residential. I'm just trying to think about other possibilities here.
It's the standard you have to look at. It's the standard itself. Has that been met? And you can put the standard back up, the specific standard. That's what the board has to consider, is whether that standard has been met.
And there's no criteria related to it has to be vacant for X number of days, weeks, years, months.
Okay.
It could be a week and they request the special exception.
Okay, that basically is my question there. So there's no guidelines here for saying, okay, this clearly is an unusable commercial property, or it's clearly the owner of the property has been unable to use it. And I think those are two different things.
And that's not a criteria that is part of your consideration.
No, it's not.
No.
Okay.
This is the criteria. The proposed dwellings will not significantly alter the overall commercial character of the subject zone.
Okay. But again, I go back to my original concern, which is not this particular application, but subsequent applications.
Well, the applicant in those situations would have to come forth with whatever facts are applicable to that applicant and prove to the board that the proposed dwellings will not significantly alter the overall commercial character of that subject property in that subject zone. So each application the board has to consider, and granting one is not precedential, and granting one in the future. Each one has to be considered on its own, and you have to, based on what's provided to you today at the hearing, do you find that the proposed dwelling will not significantly alter the overall commercial character? That's what the board has to decide.
Well, see, I can see that happening, but at a certain point, it does alter the overall area.
Well, that will be, maybe that would be true in 2 or 3 years if a few more are granted, but that's not before the board today. Before the board today is this application, and that's what the board has to decide, this application that Mr. Clark has made on this property, not what may or may not happen in the future.
Okay. So the factors which make this property unusable are irrelevant?
Yes.
Okay. Because if we're talking long-term justification, again, I just see this opening up all sorts of things in the future. Do you have any information about how long downtown commercial spaces remain unused? Are there any research done, any patterns at all, any guidelines at all? What's the vacancy rate for downtown commercial property, do you know?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, you can walk downtown and see that there are some vacancies, but the ones that I'm thinking of have been recently filled, so I don't have a good number for you on that.
So if the occupancy rate was high right now, that would mitigate the application by saying, therefore, this particular application would not really be a factor in changing the overall use of the properties. I think the current occupancy rate is about 95%, which means that, you know, a change here is certainly not a major change to the overall factor. Okay. Why is ground floor commercial mandated in the zoning code as opposed to being an option?
I don't know if I'd use the word mandated. I would say that residential is allowed in the ground floor, but through a special process, which is this special exception. The reason that in our commercial zones, we want to see commercial, especially in the downtown, is because we want a vibrant streetscape. We want, you know, large windows that people can see into and shops, and that's harder to do with residential uses.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I understand that. But that's only accomplished by mandate, by requiring it to begin with. If you didn't have that requirement in the beginning, would you suspect that in downtown Iowa City, developers, not this particular developer, but all developers would say, you know what, the market is this, it's residential. So unless the city is going to force me to put in commercial space, I'm going to 100% residential. Is that a logical assumption?
I mean, this is something that property owners could do. They could approach us and ask for residential uses in the ground floor. You asked earlier, how often has that happened? I could name two that I could think of. We're just not seeing a lot of requests to convert commercial space to residential,
Okay.
but it is an option for property owners that has to be evaluated by this board.
Okay. No, the rest of my questions are actually for the applicant also. I'll save those. Thank you. Any other questions for the staff? If not, we'll have the public hearing and ask the applicant to come speak, please. Be sure and identify yourself and sign in.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jeff Clark. Just here to briefly speak on this special exception for this property located at, 17 and 23 South Gilbert Street. This property's been vacant over the last 10 years about 95% of the time. There's been some short-term rentals in there, which are usually political groups, and other than that, it sits empty. It has short ceilings in it, so it's not very desirable inside. They're roughly 8 foot. It faces Gilbert Street instead of facing in towards downtown, which does not make it as desirable. We're just trying to figure out something to fill it up and make it look used again. No real success in the last 10 years with having any long-term tenants come take a look at it and want it. So I guess I'm here to answer any questions you have to hopefully clarify some things. So.
So the use, when it was commercially used, it was usually as an office space? That was the only type of commercial use ever used in there?
No, in the last 10 years, there was a political group that went into it was a bigger space in the middle. I believe that is 23 South Gilbert. There used to be a tanning salon that was in there for a year or two also, but that was about 10 years ago. And then as far as interest in the property, there has been some people that have looked at it for office space, but nobody ever seems to be interested in it, so it just sits empty.
So you've been attempting to rent it as office space for the last 10 years and not very successfully?
That's correct.
Do you think you would be more successful in renting it as as residential space?
I think there's a much more likely chance to occupy it, yes.
Nothing? Paula? No? Hi, Mr. Carter. How long have you owned the property?
Oh, I think about 25 years.
25 years. Okay. You currently have commercial in the corner as a tattoo parlor or something?
That's correct.
Okay. How long has that been there?
I would say roughly 5 years.
5 years. And they have a leash. They're going to be there longer, I assume?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about them moving out.
Okay. When you rented it to them, what are you charging them? I mean, I raise this question in context of the empty properties right now, the rates that they're currently paying for the tattoo parlor versus what you would be charging for the property right next to it.
I don't know the exact dollar. I'm assuming that the tattoo parlor is probably the $20 per square foot range.
Okay. And the residential, I once had these statistics about average rental rates, especially downtown, for 1 and 2, 3 bedrooms. What would you be charging for a 1-bedroom apartment down there? Or what is your current residential occupancy rate? Is it 100%?
No, we're not 100%.
Okay. In that building, it's not 100%.
Oh, I'm sorry. In that building, it might be. Yeah, I believe that there's 1, 2, 3. I believe there is, all those units are rented this year, this current right now, and there might be one available for starting in August.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I'm assuming that as soon as you make these things available for rental, they will be rented. Okay.
That's the goal, yeah.
That would be the goal. I would, if I were you, I'd be doing the same thing. But I'm not. So you talk about the problem in renting the space. How do you go out and market those spaces?
Most of it's signage. There's some online, venues that we use. But I would say for the most part, our hits come off our signage.
Okay. If someone were to come in today and say, I like this office space, so what would you be charging them?
I believe that the corner space is much more expensive. I think we were probably offering the center spaces there in the $10 to $13 per square foot range.
Okay. And maybe you can answer this question that I asked the staff, the difference between commercial versus residential taxation, which is higher for you?
I don't think there'll be a difference because the building's currently being taxed as commercial because it's multifamily. So it's being taxed as one structure, and I believe it's at a commercial rate. It's not residential because they're not condos and they're not single family. Okay. They're not small enough to be taxed at a residential rate.
The taxes on the building itself, it's not on the units in the building. I mean, the tattoo parlor, their portion of your tax rate is the same rate that your residential customers are paying.
Yeah, because there's no division in the taxes on the whole building. It's taxed as one property, and it's not divided up into individual condos that could be taxed as residential. And I believe that the commercial rate applies to multifamily. So it doesn't, I believe anything over, I don't know if it's 4 units, would be taxed as commercial.
Okay. Speaking of units, you have two fairly basic drawings of what you're planning. The one that has the 3 bedrooms, this is a finite, picky question, but I look at that, and I'm looking at the 3rd bedroom, which appears to be about the size of a closet. How big are these units, these rooms in your units?
You're saying square footage or?
Well, the bedroom in the 3rd bedroom in the big apartment, compared to the other 2 bedrooms in that area, seems to be microscopic.
And it is a little smaller. It still qualifies by the codes to be a bedroom. But it may also be that somebody ends up renting that space as a 2-bedroom with a den or a 2-bedroom with an office and uses a smaller room for that purpose.
Okay.
So.
Just no other questions? That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody who'd like to speak for the applicant or against the applicant? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Need a motion to approve for the basis of discussion.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I move the approval of EXC 25-0003, an application submitted by Jeff Clark requesting 2 special exceptions to allow ground floor residential in a commercial zone and a parking reduction in a central business zone, CB10, for the property located at 17 and 23 South Gilbert.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion?
Well, one thing that I've considered in looking at this is the location of the property. I mean, it is in a commercial zone. It's towards the north end of Gilbert before it transitioned more to a lot of residential. I don't see a lot of foot traffic whenever I drive by there as far as people looking for offices or buildings or anything. I just think that it's not going to significantly make a big change in the commercial spaces to approve it.
I agree. I think it is, I mean, it's not a very friendly, pedestrian-friendly place to be right there between South Gilbert Street and potential, I mean, you feel, I remember when the Housing Authority was there and you sort of felt like when you opened the door, you were going to be pushed backwards out onto Gilbert. And this just makes, to me, it makes sense, this application.
I'm wondering who's going to want to live there, because the same conditions that we're talking about that don't make it very appropriate for commercial, do they not make, do they go against a residential unit also? Because when you walk outside your door, you're right there. Gilbert Street is 6 feet away. It is a very difficult piece of property. I agree wholeheartedly. And I don't know what the answer is.
But what I'm hearing is a yes, that you're supporting the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have any problem at all. Any of this is residential, not at all. But I'm going to vote no. I have general concerns about the process of converting commercial to residential on the ground floor downtown, and I just don't see any compelling reason. I don't see any major flaws with it, but I just am not comfortable at all letting this change over, so I'm going to be voting no.
Just remind you, Chair, that you have to determine whether or not the criteria are met. So the question is do you find that the proposed dwelling will not significantly alter the overall commercial character or one of the other standards? That's the question you have to
Okay,
answer.
fair enough. So for the purposes of this vote, I will say, yes, I do find that there's significant damage. Any other discussion? Call the vote?
Tallman,
Yes.
Baker,
No.
Carlson,
Yes.
Russo, Swigert.
Yes.
The motion passes. It is approved. Any person desiring to appeal this decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days after this decision is filed with the city clerk's office. Thank you very much, everybody.
Do we need to read the no changes from staff report recommendations?
Yes, why don't, does everybody agree with the staff report? Just get a consensus for the three
Regarding
votes.
item,
Yeah.
regarding item EXC 25-0003, an application submitted by Jeff Clark requesting 2 special exceptions to allow ground floor residential in a commercial zone and a parking reduction in a central business zone, CB10, for the property located at 17 and 23 South Gilbert Street. I concur with the findings set forth in the staff report of, is this date?
Yes.
Okay, July 9th, 25, and conclude that the general and specific standards are satisfied. Unless amended or opposed by another board member, I recommend that the board adopt the findings in the staff report for the approval of this application. And then, okay, I have, where's the page? I had it. And I would like to include as special things from their findings that the surface parking is not permitted in the CB10 zone, and accommodating parking would require significant alterations to a historically significant structure, which would diminish or remove all historic integrity. It will help preserve and protect the property's historic, aesthetic, and cultural attributes, and the reduction will allow the current vacant space to be utilized. Okay.
Is there agreement then with the other two in the affirmative?
Yes, I
Yes.
agree.
Chair, Mr. Chair, we can proceed then to the next item.
Okay. We can proceed to the next item? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda, EXC 25-0004, an application submitted by Mike Vandermeer of Evans Scholar Foundation requesting a special exception to allow a parking reduction in a high-density multifamily residential zone, RM44, for the property located at 729 North Dubuque Street, EXC 25-0004. Staff report.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Ann Russett. This is another special exception for a historically significant building for a parking reduction. This is the property here located at 729 North Dubuque Street. You can see it's located just east of the Iowa River and south of the Park Road Bridge. Here's a zoning map. This corridor along North Dubuque Street is all zoned multifamily. There's multifamily uses along this corridor, as well as some fraternal group living uses. In terms of background, the Evans Scholar House intends to purchase the property and renovate the space from 19 rooming units to 46 rooming units. And without a parking reduction, the property must accommodate a minimum of 34 on-site parking spaces. The applicant has requested a special exception for a 50% parking reduction in order to provide 17 parking spaces on-site to preserve the unique historic character of the site. The property was built in 1923, and it's known as Phi Delta Theta. The property is eligible to be placed in the National Register of Historic Places for both its architectural and historic significance. The property was constructed prior to the current multifamily zoning designation. Also, the loss of several historically significant fraternity houses over the years increases the importance of those that remain. A parking reduction would reduce the impact to the historic property and maintain its important location along the east bank of the Iowa River. Here's the site plan that was submitted with the application showing the location of the 17 parking spaces as well as the access to the site off of North Dubuque Street. A few photographs of the building. This is taken from North Dubuque Street, kind of looking southwest. And here's one that shows the existing parking area as well as the building. And then here's a couple from across the river. So same as the last application, this is a parking reduction for unique circumstances, which can be approved where it can be demonstrated that a specific use has unique characteristics such that the number of parking spaces required is excessive or will reduce the ability to use or occupy a historic property in a manner that will preserve or protect its historic, aesthetic, or cultural attributes. In these cases, the board may grant a special exception to reduce the number of required parking spaces by up to 50%. And that's the request before you this evening. In terms of our findings, this property is not currently listed in the National Register of Historic Places. It's also not locally designated, but according to the State Historical Society, the property maintains architectural and historical significance that's eligible for listing in the National Register. In 2012, the city completed a study that noted the potential for 9 remaining fraternity houses within the 700 and 800 North Dubuque Street block that could be placed within a local conservation district in order to preserve these historic properties. No district has been established to protect these sites. The property is currently vacant. Based on the city's rental inspection data, the building has not been occupied since March of 2022. It previously housed 19 roomers and provided 17 parking spaces. In order to accommodate the 46 roomers, the property would require 34 parking spaces. The site is significantly sloped. The eastern portion of the site is at an elevation of 672 feet. The western portion along the river is at 644, and this change in grade makes it challenging to add additional parking to the site. In addition, parking would be required to be located behind the building and along the riverbank, which would not only diminish the historical riverfront character, but also impact the stream corridor and protected sensitive features in that area. Altering the structure to accommodate additional parking would diminish the historically significant architectural character, as well as the historic riverfront integrity that has remained largely unchanged since the fraternity was constructed in 1923. Over the years, several of the existing fraternity and sorority houses in this area have been demolished or negatively impacted. A parking reduction would preserve the site for one of the few remaining historically significant fraternity houses in the city, provide the opportunity for more housing in our community, and allow a building that has been vacant for several years to be reused. In terms of the general standards, the first standards is that the specific proposed exception will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, and welfare. The existing development will not be altered if granted the special exception. All work would be interior, and the existing parking area would accommodate the parking. Without a parking reduction, the property would need to either enlarge the parking area or which would alter the riverfront view, the open space, and the historic character of the site. Access to the surrounding properties will not be affected. In addition, the parking reduction would use and maintain the existing 17 spaces, which would generally maintain the existing conditions for access to the site. The 17 parking spaces The additional 17 parking space requirement would increase the vehicles required to use North Dubuque Street, which is a major arterial street. There is no on-site parking along North Dubuque Street, and the added roomers would not lead to further street congestion. The second criteria is that the exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or diminish property values. The proposed renovations and the parking reduction will not impact the ability of neighbors to utilize and enjoy the properties, nor will it negatively impact property values. Additional traffic generated may be minor due to the proposed renovation from 19 roomers to 46. However, if a 50% parking reduction is approved, the existing parking lot in 17 parking spaces would remain in use. So those existing conditions would remain. There is no on-street parking along Dubuque Street. The additional roomers would not lead to further congestion due to off-street parking. The renovations would provide additional student housing and provide the Evans Scholar Foundation with space to further serve the university and our community. The property does not have neighbors to the north. It abuts the Iowa River to the west. Multifamily residential is located to the south and to the east, and the uses in the immediate vicinity are similar in intensity. The third criteria is that establishment of the exception will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties for uses permitted in the district. The surrounding neighborhood is already fully developed with a mix of residential and institutional uses. The additional roomers will occupy the existing structure that has been in the neighborhood since 1923 and been vacant for several years. The project will provide much-needed housing that will not substantially impact the development or improvement of surrounding properties. If a parking reduction were granted, the parking area would remain in use and the existing conditions would not change. The fourth condition is that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage have been provided. The subject property is already developed. All utilities, access, and drainage and necessary facilities are already established for this neighborhood. There's pedestrian access along the sidewalk on the west side of North Dubuque Street. Iowa City Transit is also accessible from the subject property, and access to the city's bicycle infrastructure, including the Iowa River Trail, is available from the subject property. The fifth criteria is that adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress designed to minimize traffic congestion. No changes are being proposed to the existing driveway, sidewalk, or street. Traffic would be mostly limited to residents. A minor increase in traffic may be generated to accommodate the additional roomers. However, if a parking reduction is granted, the existing parking area would not be increased. The subject property is accessible to Iowa City Transit and the city's bike infrastructure. Additional parking would impact traffic flow for surrounding development along a major arterial street. A parking reduction would ensure existing conditions are maintained and limit potential traffic impacts. The sixth criteria is that, except for the specific regulations and standards applicable to the exception, the project conforms with our zoning regulations. The subject property meets the requirements of the base zone with the exception of parking for multifamily being located between the street and the building. Elements that do not currently meet these standards can continue as legal nonconforming situations. If a parking reduction were not granted, future parking stalls would need to be located behind the building and along the Iowa River, which would diminish the historical significance of the property's placement along the riverbank. The seventh criteria is that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan shows this area as appropriate for higher density residential development at 25 or more dwelling units per acre. This property is also located in the Central Planning District, which identifies this property as appropriate for fraternity and sorority housing. The comprehensive plan also supports investing in historic neighborhoods to help preserve our culture and history. And it notes that investing in the neighborhoods that are closest to the major employers in the city preserves opportunities for people to live close to work, school, shopping, promotes alternative modes of transportation and reduction in vehicle miles traveled. The proposed exception would grant the ability to provide additional student housing and opportunities for people to live close to work and school and shopping. And the parking reduction would align with the plan's vision for maintaining historic resources and promoting walking, biking, and transit within the area. And we did receive 2 pieces of correspondence on this application. One was in support of the request, which was included in your packet. The second came in earlier today, which was provided to you in opposition to the special exception. Staff does recommend approval of EXC 25-0004 to reduce the on-site parking requirement by 50% for a fraternal group living use at 729 North Dubuque Street. And I'll turn it back to the chair.
All right, thank you very much. Questions for the staff?
So I'm confused. So if we do not approve this exception, they would need 34 parking spaces? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, if we do, they only need 17, and right now there are 17 parking spaces there.
That's correct.
Okay.
How did you arrive at, in your report, that there would be 46 rooming units?
That was the request from the applicant.
Okay. In the applicant's statement that they provided, it said they would like to use it to provide housing for 45 to 55 individuals. Would they be allowed to have 55?
No, they would be restricted to 46.
So that would be a firm cap.
Yes.
Are any of the units multi-occupancy?
Well, they're not technically dwelling units, they're rooming units. So I think that's probably a better question for the applicant on how they plan to lay out the building.
Is there any bicycle parking required?
Bicycle parking is required, yes.
How many spaces?
I don't know the answer to that. That's something I would need to look into.
We do not allow parking in the front yard of a residence. They don't want parking in the backyard. There is parking on the one side. Is there any way they could get to the other side? You know, are there other alternatives on this piece of property to increase the parking?
I'm just going to go back to the aerial. But the multifamily site development standards, which this property is subject to, does not allow parking between the building and the street. So you can see here, I mean, this parking area is located between the building and the street. They could not add additional parking in this location here. It would have to be in the back. And there's no room really on the side here.
Okay.
And then you kind of get into some sensitive features when you look further north.
So basically, the parking that is there is the maximum amount that can be developed on that property right now?
I think their civil engineer is here, and that may be a good question for him. I think adding additional parking on this site would be very difficult.
Anything else? Paula? A couple of quick questions. It says here it's been shut down for a couple of years, and the prior occupancy was 19. Do you know how long that occupancy was the standard? I mean, has there been more occupants there in the past, or is it just 19? It's a dwindling down number. I'm trying to talk about, one of the concerns of the neighborhood is the impact of an increased population. I'm just trying to figure out if the property has had a history of higher population than 19?
I don't know the answer to that. Our records that we have show that it's been 19, but it could have been more in the past,
When you say your records show it's been 19, for how long?
for the past several years.
Several years,
Yeah.
okay. Do you know if it says the plan is to purchase the property. Is the purchase contingent on the approval of the application?
That's a question for the applicant.
Okay. And I noticed that the current parking area is completely overrun. It's delineated on this diagram, but would be part of the approval be based on clear delineation of the parking lot?
Yeah,
Because it's not now.
yeah, they would need to stripe the spaces.
Okay. Do we need to put that in the approval if we approve it?
I mean, you could add it as a condition, if the board feels that's justified.
Okay. Is this intended for, its fraternal use, another fraternity is going to be using the property? Is that the plan?
Yeah, the Evans Foundation, the Evans Scholars Foundation, they're the applicant.
Okay. Well, I don't know, that's a Greek organization, foundation or something?
I don't believe it's a Greek organization. They're a nonprofit entity that provides scholarships to golf caddies.
Okay.
And they can speak more to their mission and vision.
So it's basically, it's more of a comparable to a boarding house or a rooming house than a fraternity house. Because
It's
this determines a lot
classified as a
about the neighbors'
fraternity
concerns
because-
about that kind of population. Not that I would ever accuse one group being a little bit more boisterous than another group. But it's not planned to be a fraternity house. It's a separate kind of housing, right?
The use is classified as fraternal group living. It's not independent group living, which would be a boarding house. It's
Yeah.
fraternal group living because they have a partnership with the university. The university has sanctioned them as a fraternity.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I understand the neighbors' concerns as well. Just a quick clarification on a definition. Under findings, we talk about additional parking would be required to be located behind the building and along the riverbank, which would not only diminish the historical river character, yes, but also impact the stream corridor. What does that mean, impact the stream corridor?
So the city has a sensitive areas ordinance, which regulates development near streams. The Iowa River would qualify as
Okay.
that, and there needs to be separation from the river and the floodway and any development.
Okay. And last question, just a clarification. It was raised earlier. 46 is the absolute maximum by code that can be allowed there.
With the parking reduction, yeah, they would be capped at 46.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
I have another question about the parking lot, because there are 17 parking spaces in that parking lot. Okay, and you said that there were only 19 people living in the house. So why would they have a parking lot with 17 parking spaces if at one point there were not more people living there? And to follow the rules of the city, 17 spaces, how many people would that accommodate without a reduction?
With 19.
Yeah, if we were
Yeah.
doing it.
It would be 19 roomers. It would be 19, which was, they were allowed previously with the 17 parking spaces.
Okay.
Any other questions? This time, if the applicant would like to come speak before the board?
Good evening, John Beasley on behalf of the Evans Scholars Foundation. Normally I prefer to speak without notes, but I have some numbers to give you, and as I've aged, my memory with numbers isn't quite as good as it used to be. So I want to tell you a little bit about the Evans Scholars Foundation because there was questions raised about it, and even if you didn't have questions, my intent was to let you know about this organization. Evans Scholars Foundation is out of Chicago. They're a 501c3 tax-exempt, not-for-profit. They're not developers. They're not out there to make a profit. They've been in existence since 1930. I wrote it down here so I could articulate it appropriately. What they do is they provide scholarships, tuition, room and board, to young individuals who otherwise might not have the opportunity to attend college. These individuals are have limited financial resources. Many of them are first-generation college students. Since 1930, and I have to tell you, when I first got involved in this case, I hadn't heard of the Evans Scholars Foundation, and once I got into it, I started looking into this to really understand it. Since 1930, they have awarded young people of limited financial means 12,300 scholarships. Every year, or last year, they gave approximately 340 scholarships. So at one time, they have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, nearly 1,200 full scholarships for young individuals. There's a selection process, and it's quite unique. They have, and Mike Vandermeer here can speak to it, I'm sure more specifically than I can, but they meet these young kids because they have relationships with golf courses. And young kids work at golf courses caddying, and they get to know individuals. And as part of that process, they are then permitted to apply for a scholarship. And they have a very strict selection process. It involves academics, need, character. They have several criteria. Once the individual gets a scholarship, they have expectations from the Evans Group, not only in the house, but in the community. And the numbers for me really caught my attention. Plus 20 locations throughout the country. They own, Evans that is, properties in 17 major universities throughout the country. I made a little quick note of them here. Illinois, University of Illinois, University of Indiana, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Missouri, Northwestern, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Purdue, Wisconsin, University of Washington in Seattle, and I think they just opened a house in Kansas. They have expectations for these young kids. To maintain that scholarship, your GPA has to be 3.0 or better. Their average, based on their information, is the average is 3.2. Historically, 98% graduation rate in 4 years with a GPA average of 3.3. I think I saw some information, 95% of their graduates employed or in graduate school once they complete their undergraduate work. Evans, I think Iowa City is privileged that Evans has selected Iowa City for a site to put up their scholars. There's currently, I believe, 20 current Evans scholars at the University of Iowa. The goal is to get a bigger facility that we can have all these young scholars under one roof. We'd like to get that number up to 40 to 45, 46. It is a fantastic program. This isn't a fly-by-night operation. They've been doing it nearly 100 years, and they're good at what they do, which is providing scholarships and opportunities for young kids. The staff report. I'm not going to jump into all the details of that, other than, obviously, I support their analysis and the recommendations. The one question, though, that's come up, and Mr. Downer, I think, can address it as well. He represents the owner of the property, is this 19, okay, this number of 19. Don't know where that came from, okay? Historically, that building, from what I understand, and again, no offense, Mr. Downer, but going back to the 1960s, that's about the earliest one I could find, right, to talk about it. Anecdotally, this building has had 40, 45 people, young people in the fraternity. Historically, in that building was 17 spots. I don't know if that 19 is a result of the fact that it's been vacant and there's grandfathers have been lost. And if you look at the parking and you do the calculations, you come up with 19. But historically, over, as far as we could go back, 60 years to the early 1960s, it's been that 40 to 45 range with the current parking. Evans' intent is to use and occupy that property consistent with what it had been used at since the 1960s, not during the period it's been vacated and grandfathers have been lost, okay? So, I think we're lucky that this group wants to be here, and they want to maintain that historically significant property. They don't want to change the parking, but they would like to have the parking reduced down so they could put 46 people in there. The question came up from, I believe, Ms. Carlson, how we came up with 46. And I'm going to try to do this from memory. It kind of worked into it backwards, right? If it's my understanding, and the city staff can tell me if I'm wrong, that for each roomer, you have to have 0.7 parking spots, right? And so we worked into it backwards. So we say you have 46 people, you do the math, I think it comes out to 34 spots. And then with a reduction in 50%, which this board has the ability to grant, you get it to 17. So we kind of worked into the number starting with the 0.75 spots per occupants. I think I did that correctly. You can correct me.
Yeah, I don't remember the parking ratio, but it was based on the 17. How many roomers can you get with the existing 17
Exactly.
parking spaces and a 50% reduction?
And we worked it and got to 46. Yes, we have a purchase agreement, Chairperson Baker. It's conditioned on getting the parking reduced, right? We'd like to put 46 people in there. Mr. Welch, the engineer, can address the parking, but we're not interested in changing parking, okay? So I'm ready for questions. I know when we go in front of the Iowa Supreme Court, we have a hot bench, and I know you're asking a lot of questions tonight, so ask away.
I don't know if you can answer it, but my question was, are these individual rooming units, or will more than one person be housed in an area?
Give me that one again.
Are there
I haven't been in the building.
Are there
so-
46 rooms in this building, or are there spaces that would, like a dorm room, would maybe house more than one person?
I don't believe there's 46 separate rooming units in this unit, right? There's space.
There's not.
All
Yeah,
right.
there's spaces that can accommodate several roomers in one room, right? But the building, you go to another, the building is large enough, based on in my reading of the city definitions, to have more than 46. The lot area is big enough to have more than 46. The parking is the question, right? And with the existing parking, our calculations show 46. But no, if you walk in there, it's not like there's 46 doors lined up and you can walk in and there it is, right?
You included a diagram or whatever of the building. Is this how you want to keep it? Because there are the two floors look like they're bedrooms, then it looks like there's a large communal area.
Yes.
So,
Michael come up here and answer. He's with Evans Scholars and he's more in the construction side.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, to be on the record, you need to come up to
Yeah.
the microphone.
When you're done with me, I'm going to send him up here. You may be done with me.
John, you're so old, I'm going to take mercy on you.
Well-
You've been around a long time.
Bless your heart. And I feel like I've grown because the first time you and I had these discussions, we were discussing in the early 90s pigeons, if you
Yeah.
recall.
Oh, God, yes.
I feel I've grown now into
No,
scholarships.
seeing you and Bob here today, just like flashbacks. Thank you very much, John.
You bet.
I have a question.
For John? Okay, John, I'm sorry. One more question.
Oh,
John, did I hear you correctly? Did you say that the Evans Development Foundation currently has students at the University of Iowa?
absolutely. The
And-
University of Iowa.
And how many now?
I think it's 20. I think we're up to 20 now.
And are they living in a fraternal setup, or are they distributed throughout different?
I think they're distributed throughout, but maybe Mike can address that. But our goal is to get them all in one place. We think that would be fantastic, and that's our goal. And then Mike can address the other points like what supervision is in there. I know there was a letter that I saw today about noise and parties and stuff like that. And, they don't run an animal house, right?
I guess I do. Can I make a comment, follow up to John's presentation? It has to do with comparing occupancy in the 1960s to today.
I think that should wait till you.
Okay.
I'm done?
Right. Thank you,
Okay.
John.
Mike
can we
Vandermeer.
call him back if we have more questions?
You want to call him back?
Can we call him back?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Vandermeer. I did sign in. I represent Evans Scholars Foundation. We are out of the Chicagoland area in Illinois. Thankful for this opportunity, thankful for your time tonight. I know you guys are volunteers, and this is a medium of service to your community. My role is to oversee all facilities and construction for Evans Scholars Foundation. I won't repeat everything that John said, but I would like to highlight once again that we award full tuition and housing scholarships to deserving golf caddies of modest financial means. These will be some of the finest students on campus and some of the finest citizens in the community. Without the scholarship, they would not be able to attend the University of Iowa. We are, as John highlighted, we are not a for-profit student housing entity. These kids do not pay us rent. They couldn't if they had to. Well categorized as a fraternity or Greek, we are not. Universities just don't have individual files for every type of entity out there, so we get broadly categorized as Greek and treated as such or fraternal. We are a coeducational organization supporting both men and women in a living and learning community with incredibly successful outcomes. As our students are very limited financially, many don't have access to cars while away at school. Only certain students are permitted to park a vehicle on our site, and any students in excess of the parking lot that required parking for a vehicle would have to pay for parking on campus. They would not push out into the neighborhood, they would push into the campus. Some of our places where this has become an issue, though many college towns have gotten away from parking altogether, nationally, we have rented spaces on behalf of the program before to put everybody at ease. And we're prepared to do whatever it takes to make sure that everybody realizes we're serious about being good neighbors and not congesting already congested neighborhoods. Most will just walk to class. They are golf caddies. They walk a lot. Part of our criteria is a certain number of qualifying caddy rounds, obviously high academic achievement, high character and volunteerism, and then also have to have exhibited financial need in order to qualify for our criteria, where then kids apply, and roughly 1/3 are awarded Evans scholarships, which again are full tuition and housing scholarships, life-changing for the families that receive them. Regarding relevant and realistic concerns over noise and behavior, our scholars are going to be supervised by live-in graduate resident advisors. We police ourselves. We are substance-free living. There are no alcoholic beverages allowed on site. And we have no issues with our neighbors anywhere. We don't get the police called on us. We're not loud and rowdy and wild and crazy. I say this with an abundance of affection. The kids that live in our houses are nerds. They go to work, they go to school, they study, they add value, and they're good citizens. Our program just won National Scholarship of the Year for a reason, and that's the quality of our young people that live in our houses. We've been around a long time, as John Beasley said. We have never been disciplined off campus. We've never been shut down. We've never been closed down at any chapter. Our properties are often award-winning, and we will make this site something that the community is proud of. I'm happy to answer any questions specifically about the property or about Evans Scholars Foundation.
How do you go about selecting people to come into your program?
Well, they have to apply for it. It's something that's well-known in the caddy community. So these kids will work at golf courses and country clubs where there's connections with the Evans Scholars Foundation. They have to get applications in by a certain date in order to be considered. Then they go through the process, transcripts, financial statements, essays on why they should have a chance to apply for the scholarship. Then there's scholarship interviews where those that are awarded scholarship are then notified after the interview that they've received. And then they have to also be able to get into the schools that they're applying to. So,
What would you say is the income level of most of the families who have people who apply for this?
it's sensitive information, but we're, just to give you guys a snapshot, average adjusted gross income, I believe last application season was under $70,000 per household. That was average.
And you were talking about cars.
Yes.
And so in your other campuses, what has the issue been? And you were talking about if there were too many, you would find rental space for them. And is that written into your constitution or your things now? Or if we're concerned about that, can we put that in?
That's a house-by-house issue. There's only a couple of locations that we have where there's enough parking for everybody. Again, most people don't show up with cars. A lot of our houses have 0 parking spaces. We prefer to build the 0 if we're developing in a new location. But if it were needed, if we were in excess of the 17 parking spaces, then yes, we would formalize agreements.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was hoping you could answer the question that John wasn't sure about. Where are your current scholarship recipients residing?
Freshmen, sophomores are in dorms, and then we had a delegation of our first round of, I think we had 9, our first award year. We put them in apartments in the area. But our goal is to have everybody under one roof because community living's a pillar of our scholarship.
So if someone applies for the scholarship and is accepted, how do you determine which school they go to?
They have to be able to get into that school.
Okay.
Ideally, it's preferential for us if they're able to attend schools in state. It gives the best tuition rate, best bang for the buck. Every dollar that we spend and invest in these communities is donated. So we're careful about how we do it. We try to be good stewards. But what kids will do when they apply for the scholarship, they'll put down what schools they've applied to and been accepted in. And then if there's available space in the scholarship houses at those schools, and they're able to get into those schools, especially if they're in state, then there's a much higher chance that they'll be able to end up there.
Would you require that your current students vacate the dorms and apartments and move into the rooming house?
Yes. Yes. And I don't even mean this sarcastically, but we didn't come to Iowa City to have people living in apartments and dorms. Our goal has always been to have everybody living in community together. It's just part of our DNA of who we are. And that also includes our graduate resident advisors that'll live in the house in supervisory roles also.
So do they get their meals there also?
Meals, it's a little bit different depending on where we are. We don't serve food in the houses. Often, what they'll typically do, our scholars will get meal jobs at sororities. And as part of that, they could make some money every hour, but also often get free food. If they're able to purchase meal plans, they'll purchase meal plans. And if somebody can't afford that, then we find a way to make sure that people eat. But we're not planning on serving food in the house at this time. In places where we do, we usually bring in from the outside. So it's more of a servery and not an operational cooking kitchen.
So, okay, you said you had about 20 students currently at the University of Iowa.
Yes.
And if,
Well, 30, about 30 now. We've been giving out about 10 scholarships a year. So
okay.
we have another 10 coming in.
And how many graduate resident advisors do you typically have per, is there like a 1-to-6 ratio or a 1-to-2?
We would plan on having 2 in the house.
Okay,
We plan on 2 in the house.
okay. My concerns about this isn't the use so much as it is the numbers and what kind of an impact that has. Of course, I mean, those are the things we're told to think about. I'm concerned about deliveries more than on-site parking with so many people use DoorDash and,
Sure.
and 46 individuals hungry at different times. That incline up Dubuque Street, I'm concerned about any negative effects of a delivery vehicle stopping on Dubuque Street for a delivery and sitting there and waiting and causing problems. I see that as a more likely inconvenience in this instance, and there's probably a way around that. I mean, making sure that deliveries actually come into the driveway and pull up into the parking lot instead of just sitting on the street with its lights blinking. We're all
Understood.
familiar
Understood.
what that's like. The other question I have is, I look at the floor plans, and maybe this is more a question for you, Mike, but are there only 7 toilets for 46 people?
The
Really?
bathroom situation's something that we would address in interior renovations.
So this hasn't been code reviewed then yet for how many fixtures per person?
No. Well, we did have our architect look through it.
Uh-huh.
And the short answer is yes, but it needs some work.
Okay.
Because there's bathrooms on the second level, top level, and
Yeah.
then there's one on the main level.
Right. Yes, I see them. They're pretty clear in these
Sure.
drawings. I just wondered if this was existing or proposed.
That would be existing.
Okay, that's reassuring. Especially, well, I just think 46 people need more than 7 toilets.
Agreed. No, I understand.
Did you say it was co-ed as well?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
And that seems like that would have to be accommodated.
It would. It
Okay.
would. There'd be, usually the way our bathroom situation works inside, there's men's, women's, and then we have a couple of neutral bathrooms additionally.
I'm thinking more like things like shower space.
Yeah, and what we do, we build right. We do things the right way. we build stuff that's built to last. We would, while obviously the bulk of our work's interior, we would refresh the exterior with respect to the neighborhood. Right now, it's overgrown. It needs some love. It needs some investment. We're prepared to make that investment. We wouldn't radically change the outside, just as we're looking for some capacity allowance that runs the clock back a little bit. We would restore it, period, correct, on the outside.
Any other questions? No. Thank you very much.
Anything else about the, okay, sounds good. And just to be
You
clear.
had a question for John?
There are not 46 individual bedrooms in the house. There's some single occupancy, but for the most part, it's double, triple occupancy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more. So you were talking about you do not give meals, and so they can go to sororities or other places and get a job. Can they get other kinds of jobs? Are they allowed then to work besides going to school?
They are. Their grades have to stay at a certain level, or else they'll fall into probationary territory. But yes, they are allowed to work. Again, these are not kids that are showing up with moms and dads' credit cards. These are kids that if they want some walking around money to go to the movies or go buy some chicken fingers, they're going to have to work for their money. So yeah, they're permitted to work if they need to or if they're able to.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Not for me.
Thanks, sir.
Do you have a question for John, you said? Nancy?
No,
Oh, I thought you did. All right.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak in favor of the applicant?
Hello, I'm Mike Welch with Shoemaker in Holland. I'm the civil engineer working with Evan Scholar on the property. And I guess I just wanted to address the couple questions that came up earlier on the parking feasibility on that site. If we kind of can see it on the picture, but everything kind of west of the existing driveway and parking lot, that falls off very quickly down to the river. And then from the parking lot and the building down to like the backyard of the property, there's a couple sets of stairs there. I would estimate that's a 12 to 15 foot drop off that parking lot. On the picture you had up earlier, Ann, that showed like looking from Hampshire back across the river, you can kind of see there's actually like 2 levels below the parking lot. So if we looked at adding parking on the west side of the building, we would have to find a way to, one, get vehicles, one, down there, and then 2, back up. And just a very challenging site parking-wise. Same thing as we looked with Mike at expanding that parking lot or finding a way to squeeze a few more cars in. And I can tell you, we tried every possible combination, and there just really isn't any more space in that lot. I guess the other thing I would point out is if you go back and look at the aerial photography available from Johnson County over the last few decades, in most cases, there's more than 17 cars parked there. People are parked parallel on the driveway. They're double parked. They're kind of tandem parked. They're parked in spots where you wouldn't be able to get your car out. So I think functionally that site has seen more than that parking kind of in the neighborhood. I think the neighborhood's seen that before. But when we look at it, what the code allows and what we can fit with code and allowed parking, 17 is that maximum number. I think that was the questions you had, but if you have more, I'm happy to answer those too. So
I have a question. Did this property flood in 2008?
I believe parts of the yard did, but the building does sit up quite a bit from the river. But that's a good question.
So would there be assigned parking spaces? Or first come, first serve? Or how do you deal with, and maybe you're not the one?
They'd be assigned. They'd be assigned, and they'd have to have their house parking permit. So,
And then when there were more than 17, you would have to deal with finding another place for them
Correct.
to park?
correct. Yes. And then also one thing that came up earlier, the property's been vacant for a minimum of 5 years. So it's been left in its condition for some time.
Yeah.
So it sits empty now.
I think the only other thing I'd add to the question of deliveries, there is space with the 17 cars in the parking lot to still turn around and kind of get back out if you came in for a delivery.
Yeah, it looks like there is plenty of room there. Again, I was just visualizing what it would be like if there were frequent drivers stopped on that section of Dubuque in front of the building, knowing the traffic
Yep.
in that area, as long as they know to come into the parking area and not idle on Dubuque Street. Hopefully, I mean, you just can't count on people to figure that out themselves always. And I see that as a potential problem. With this many people knowing how, and there is no on-site food service, and it's not like a household where you might call out DoorDash for, your family. You could have, as I said before, 46 individuals ordering these mobile delivery services online, doing, that's going to happen. And that kind of thing is sort of a recent phenomenon. So, yes, I appreciate that the parking area is there, the room is there. It's just a question of whether people will actually know to use it.
Other questions from the board? Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor of the applicant?
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Downer. It's already been established that I'm an old-timer, I guess, and from my appearance, I don't think anybody'd have any doubt about that if I were to deny it. But I do have some personal knowledge with respect to this property from having lived across the street for approximately 4 years from 1957 to 1961, and was in this property a number of times because of friends that lived there. And I know that the occupancy during that period of time would have been in the 40s. That house was packed. And some of the pictures that were shown, showed parking there that was somewhat irregular, and I'm sure exceeded the applicable restrictions at that time. But there have been many more people that have lived there, I know, than the 17 or 19 that was talked about earlier. I am here as the attorney for the Phi Delta Theta House Association, the owner of this property, and have represented them for approximately 2 years as they first looked toward rejuvenating the chapter that had gone off campus in part because of some disciplinary issues with the University of Iowa, and also with some dissension apparently within the membership. Their goal when we first started this was to reactivate this chapter and get a sufficient number of members there to occupy the house and support it financially. It became clear during the course of reviewing this that this was not something that was feasible. For a period of time, it looked like it might be, but then those plans didn't come to fruition. The next thing that they looked at after trying to reconstitute the chapter was to find some use for it that would preserve the building and to maintain the structure in roughly its present configuration and not see it demolished and more apartments constructed, which was true of a fraternity that adjoined this property on the south some years ago. And when Evans Scholars manifested an interest in this property. This was felt to be a perfect marriage between the interests of the seller and the buyer. It so happened that I had some knowledge with respect to the Evans Scholars Foundation because that's an organization that has been supported for many years by the Western Golf Association. And I have a good friend who's a lawyer in Bloomington, Indiana, who has served on the board of the Western Golf Association and spoke to me a number of years ago about the wonderful things that they were doing and wondered about the possibility of establishing a chapter on the University of Iowa campus because these chapters are largely centered in the Midwest and in Big Ten institutions. Not entirely, but the vast majority of them do have a Big Ten location. And I knew some of the things that have been recited here, and from the things that I have learned about the Evans Scholars Foundation over the years is that they are, as advertised by these people, that they attract high-quality young people who would not be able to afford a college education otherwise, and that they go out and contribute to their communities and are solid citizens. And I think this would be an excellent addition to the University of Iowa, permitting them to have a location where all of their scholars could be housed under one roof. And so if there are any questions, the plans as far as going forward are concerned are being developed by Evans and their team. I'm here just on behalf of the seller to indicate support for this, but also provide a little additional background that I happen to be aware of, and would be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have of me.
I'll ask a question. Did you notice, I mean, how would you compare car ownership at college in the late 50s, early 60s compared to what we see now? How many students came to college with a car?
It was a significant number. I think many of them were considerably older than the cars that we see on campus today. But parking has been a significant problem in Iowa City for as long as I've been around. And there were parking areas at that time that have been taken off. For example, on Jefferson Street, before that was a one-way street, there was angle parking on the north side of the street. And it was a matter then of having to drive around a number of times until you were able to find an open parking spot. So the enrollment was much smaller at that time, but in terms of the prevalence of students having cars, I'm not sure it's changed all that much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Bob. Speaking for the applicant. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Clark. I spoke earlier. This property is a beautiful property. I was involved with the Phi Delta Thetas back in the 90s, and it would be good to see it revitalized and used again. As far as the number of occupants back then, when I was involved with the member of Phi Delta Theta, there was essentially between 30 and 40 members that lived in the house. Parking hasn't changed. It wasn't really a problem with that limited number of spaces. And as far as putting parking in the backyard, that would destroy the look. It's a beautiful place, and I just hope that you recommend or that you approve this. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Joe. Anybody else want to speak for the application? If not, we'll open up anybody who would like to speak against the application.
Hi, I'm Josie Singerman. I live at 219 Ronalds, which is a couple blocks from this property. And I just want to say a couple of things with all due respect to the people that have spoken. I know that fraternal orders aren't developers. They're not in it for the profit. We've heard the same type of conversation about members of other fraternities in the area in terms of the people, the young people who live there and their character and so on. But truth be told, you aren't going to be living in the house.
I have to encourage you to speak
Okay.
directly, because
They
it doesn't
won't-
get picked up by the recorder.
Okay, I got it. Thanks, Larry. The people who've spoken won't be living in the house. And there are significant problems in the North Side neighborhood due to a number of the fraternities there in the rental properties. The house might have been crowded in the 60s, but the whole neighborhood is now crowded in 2025. A lot of residential properties have been turned into into rooming houses for students and so on. I think last fall, where I live is in the middle of the block. In my alley, there's something like, from the middle of the block to the end, there's something like 50 cars parked between the fraternities and the rooming houses. We have a serious problem with noise and with parking in particular in the area. This property, I can tell you the reality. There might have been 17 parking spots there, but there were way more than 17 cars in that lot, and they were double parked in back of each other. There was no room to turn around. I can see into it when I drive by. They're parked up the driveway. They have to coordinate with each other to get in and out. It's a dangerous spot to turn into or out of onto Dubuque Street. And what tends to happen is not so much that cars stop to make deliveries or something, but they try to make a left turn into the property, and they have to stop and wait for traffic for them to be able to turn. In the meantime, traffic backs up in back of them on Dubuque Street, particularly going north. There will be more congestion with this issue, or with this particular, if there are 46 people there, and most people have cars these days. Low-income people have cars. Most of the students who come to the university have a car. The cars have to go somewhere, and typically, if they don't have a parking spot that goes to the street on the north side, you really have to plan in order to get a parking spot there. I've had service providers that won't come to my home because there is no parking during the day, in particular, during the school year. I have people come to work on my house and they have to park on the lawn because there is no parking. If I have guests coming, I typically have to move my car out of my parking spot onto the street, look for a place at 7 a.m., move my car so that people can park where I usually park. So, we're not making this up. This is a serious issue. Those are just some examples of the current situation. I understand this is a worthy objective, that these kids are, they sound really, really great. However, if the developer wants to have 46 people there, they should be required to provide parking in accordance with the code. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Jesse before? I was just checking to make sure that nobody had questions for you.
Sorry, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Robin Christensen. This is the first kind of meeting I've ever come to like this, so I'm a little nervous. But I wrote the letter, and that you got, the letter about the parking on Lindsay.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Robin Christensen. I live
Okay.
at 721 North Lynn, which is between Ronald and Brown. and an alley goes straight down from Lynn Street to Dubuque, and it's a busy alley.
Okay.
For cars coming through, people decide they don't want to go to Brown, or Ronald is crowded, and they're like zip down that alley and get onto Dubuque. So that's a problem, but my concern is, yeah, the 46 people and possibly a lot of cars, and our neighborhood is already congested with cars. And when you have cars and people looking for parking at night, during the day, there's a lot of noise. And we have been subjected to an incredible amount of disturbances during the day and at night. And the thought of having more people without parking up on Lynn and beyond and walking down on Ronald or our alley, because they're not probably going to walk down Brown, because that's very steep, is really just very, very disturbing. And it is a problem. We want you to take us seriously. We really hope that you do not allow 46 people to move in there, but I understand that they are nice people. But the students who are around us, we've been having a lot of problems, and we're trying to work it out with the university, the police, city, the fraternity organizations, and I really hope that these people stay to 19 and not bring a lot of cars and congestion and disturbances to our neighborhood. I don't know. Yeah, it's just-
Questions or comments? No?
I don't probably say anything that Jesse didn't say, but I did want to say that the neighbors, these are neighbors on our block, on the 700 block, and there's two other names that didn't get onto it because they responded later today, and that's Megan Gerber and Carrie Wilkins, and they live at 729 North Lynn. Okay? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else in opposition? Yes, sir.
I hope so.
Okay. I'll sign this for you, okay?
I got it.
You got it? Okay. I'm just going to stand here.
Okay, my name is Kim Miller, and I live at 721 North Lynn, the same with Robin. I guess I am impressed with the Evans Scholars. That sounds like a pretty good organization, and I appreciate that it's quality kids that are moving into the neighborhood. Having said that, that's not really our concern. That's wonderful, but it doesn't have anything to do with the variance that you're asking for, unfortunately. It probably makes it a little more palatable to consider that we're going to have great people moving in, but the reality is that we have a code for a reason. And I don't know if you're aware, but right across the street from this property is 702 Dubuque. And that's also a fraternity, and it's also got a parking variance. There are some 35 kids in that property, and there are 13 parking spaces right now. So there's already an issue with them finding parking spots. The real issue, you talk about not negatively impacting the neighborhood. That would be wonderful if it was true, but it is not. The fact is that as we add, another 40 kids into that neighborhood, it's going to exacerbate the problems that we see right now. We are a bed and breakfast, and our guests don't really appreciate being waken up at 2 a.m. on Thursday night. It's like a clock going off. It's every Thursday night when the bars close. The guys in the fraternity come walking home, and they are not quiet. They're in a good mood and having a good time, and they talk and they're doing whatever they're doing, but they're walking down our alley and they're waking us and our guests up, and they're with additional people parking in the neighborhood. We can be pretty confident that problem is going to get worse. So it does negatively impact the neighborhood, contrary to what the city staff seems to have determined without talking to us or checking out with any of the residents in the area. So I would ask that you not go along with this variance. I think that there's, the assumption is that we have to expand the number of kids in that building for it to be a viable arrangement. I don't think that anybody has considered that, the current number of people, 20 people in that facility is probably totally fine. It's the assumption that we got to go to 46 because we have the ability to do a 50% variance is kind of a funny assumption. Thank you.
Wait, hold on.
Questions?
I do have one question. It's not a question specifically for you, but for the neighborhood, which is,
Sure.
it's my perception that the existing parking problem in that area is such that there really is no parking in that area.
There is, at night, it's a odd even kind of a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So after 5 p.m., anybody can park at any time until 8 a.m. It's not, you won't get ticketed during that time. But if your car is on the wrong side of the street at 8 a.m., you're pretty likely to get a ticket. So what that means is that the guys, the gals, whoever, is going to have to go further east to find parking, because there is no street parking on Dubuque.
Mm-hmm.
There's no street parking on Church. Those are the two of the biggest streets in our area. So they're just going to have to go further out and, in fact, probably create the problem that we're finding of late night conversations and so on to be disruptive. Further from their residency. As they park further out, they're walking through more of a neighborhood and so on. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else want to speak in opposition to the application? If not, this is an opportunity for the applicant to respond to some of these concerns that have been expressed. I think you talked a little bit in the past about how you handle the parking of your members. Can you come up and reiterate how you're going to be different than previous occupants?
Yeah, I could just say that nationally, with over 1,200, getting close to 1,300 kids in school, less than half of our kids are coming to campus with cars, less than half. All I could say is we'll have 17 cars in that lot. They'll all be permitted by our organization, and any overflow would have to be on campus or other parking arrangements that are paid for. People.
That's my question, which is.
Well, people could say that just won't happen, but all I could say is that's just what we do nationally.
When you say that's what you do, you require the people that don't have parking assigned to them on site, you require the others that do have cars to have a parking permit in some other place?
Yes. Yes, we have. Where it applies, we have 95 kids at University of Wisconsin, 0 parking spaces, and they're not all parking in the street. Just most of them didn't bring cars, and the few that did, they have paid parking arrangements elsewhere.
Okay.
Just for instance, I mean, I could go school by school.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, and I empathize with your guys' concerns. I truly do. All I could say is we are different. I could just tell you that, and I do feel bad that you guys endure what you endure. We're in a lot of different college towns. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be talking to them. We're in a lot of different college towns. It's a huge problem everywhere. But I could just say that we are a different type of organization.
Can we ask them other questions?
Sure.
Okay, so while you're up here, one of the things they're concerned about is they want a calm and peaceful neighborhood. Do you have hours? How do you deal with the fact that, right now they're dealing with the fraternities
Sure.
that come home at 2 a.m. on Thursday nights,
Yeah, we have. I mean, we know college campuses come alive on Thursday nights. He's mentioned Thursday night. We have help desk set up, so the houses are supervised during the wee morning hours. We have 2 graduate resident advisors at a minimum on each property, and then an additional person assigned to watch help desk and front door. I don't know what the cutoff is, but we usually try to follow whatever noise ordinance is in the area when the houses have to quiet down. Well, we can't do anything about what the neighborhood or neighbors do, but
No.
we try to police our own, and we do try to play by the rules. So help desk is manned, or staffed, I should say, from Thursday through Monday morning. And that's when we have somebody assigned to kind of just sit at a desk, watch the front door, and just look out for people that may need, to be ushered inside or helped up to their rooms.
if your people want to be loud, do they get reprimanded? Are there points against them for?
Yeah, we try to run a tight ship. Nobody bats 1,000, I don't think we do. I think we're the very best at what we do. I don't know many other caddy scholarship specialists, but we are good in the student housing space. Like I said, we're in a lot of different neighborhoods, and we don't typically have issues. There are penalty systems for people that don't follow the rules. They do get fined internally. We do the best we can to police it. And they're pretty good at policing their own. So, and having 2 graduate resident advisors living in, there is a big difference between an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old. To have that young adult presence in the houses does help pretty significantly.
Would the person on site be available to neighbors if they had a concern
I would say yes.
at all hours of the day and night?
I mean, if they'd have to answer their phone, but
Yeah.
I would think yes. We do try to react to the needs and concerns of neighbors.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, if you want to come back.
Again, I mean, no disrespect to the people who've spoken, but I just have to say that what we have found is once things are approved, there is no accountability. The students in the houses, it's very hard to find any entity that actually has any control or any supervision of them. It may candidly sound good. It all sounds good, but what actually happens is that the university has limits on what they can and will do. The police have limits on what they can and will do. We've had a very hard time finding anyone to actually hold student behavior to any level of accountability. So, yes, it is, yeah.
It's a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I respond? May I respond? May I, can I make a comment? Sure.
Well, I think when the public hearing is closed and you folks are speaking among yourselves, that would be the time.
Okay.
Because a comment doesn't require a response.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Okay, anybody else speaking for or against? If not, I will close the public hearing. Call for a motion to be made in the affirmative so we can discuss this issue.
Wait a minute. I move the approval of, let's see, EXC 25-0004 to reduce the on-site parking requirement by 50% from 34 to 17 parking spaces for a fraternal group living use at 729 North Dubuque Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Board discussion?
I have to say that I'm real familiar with situations like this where there's a property that is causing problems with a neighborhood. Anything from trash deliveries before 7 in the morning to garbage not being properly disposed of. It's really, and I have heard many promises I did during those years from developers. And I want to believe that there's a better way of doing things than what I had seen in the past. And it's always the case that some landlords or entities or fraternities, whatever, that some people are more responsive than others. Some property owners have such a good grip on the behavior of their tenants that we don't get problems called into us. But so my experience at the City of Iowa City with multifamily housing and fraternities and all that's associated with, I am familiar. And having someone who is really, truly accountable in a circumstance where there is a negative impact on a neighborhood is refreshing. It's not unheard of. And I feel like this group coming before us is presenting at least a different mode of operation than what we've seen in some other instances. Now, I also know that once a particular type of use is approved on a site under a condition, that subsequent uses can come in, and as long as they don't change the population or the use, you don't always have the same entities having control over the property. So what the decision that we make, the thing that we need to remember is that we're not just approving this for the Evans Foundation. We're approving it for a use that could continue if the Evans Foundation, say, blossoms, and you need another bigger property in Iowa City or whatever. I'm conflicted a little bit. I understand. Also, I used to live in that neighborhood. I lived in that neighborhood for a long time. I'm very familiar with the parking problems, the noise problems, that exact alley. I know this neighborhood. At the same time, I'm hoping that the Dubuque Street buffer and the fact that this property is across the street means less likely impacts to the existing situation on the east side of Dubuque Street. It's not a guarantee. I see you. I know. I hear you. I'm conflicted. I just want to make that clear. I understand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nancy, Paula?
Well, I totally agree about the conflict about approving the amount of parking reduction for this use, but like you say, in the future, other owners may not be as careful with how they intend to handle the parking. I'm very sympathetic with the neighbors. I do think Dubuque, because it's wider now, will provide some buffer. But in my own part of town, we are experiencing and will experience more the pressure of multifamily parking. And people do come into other neighborhoods to park. And I know that firsthand and will be experiencing it. So that is a real big conflict for me. To go to this maximum number of people to house, 46, it seems like a big jump to me.
This was a fraternity. This is a big house. You know, so what is an appropriate population for this? I think 40 probably is an appropriate population. The question, and if you do not let this group come in with 40, who else is going to come in? Do we want to lose this building? Do we want to have it torn down and another apartment house built? I mean, there are a lot of things to be weighed here. I love these old buildings. I would like to see them stay. I want to see groups come into them that respect the neighborhood. I think the neighbors, I live on Jefferson Street. I know all about traffic. I know all about noise. I've lived there 40 years. I know all about it. I understand what the neighbors are talking about. So I'm going, okay, is there a way that we can have this populated with a reasonable amount of people, which I believe is probably 40, and still answer some of the things that the neighbors are concerned about? Right now, they want to stay at, 17 parking spaces. I would like to see a rider or something put in that all people who live in the house, if they have a car, has to have it registered, and the people who own the property have to find another place for them to park their car. That would take care of it for this group, and they said that this is something that they're willing to do, but it would be a way of protecting it if they moved out and someone else moved in, to protect the neighbors. I don't want to leave you out in the cold. I've been out in the cold. I know what it's like. I want to find a compromise between the neighbors and the people here so that we can make this building work. One of the other things I'm concerned about is the noise thing. You said you have hours. I don't know if there's some way a rider could be put in about that. Those are my thoughts. And it's because I want to see both sides come together for the good of their neighborhood.
So, Nancy, are you suggesting specific amendments to the resolution of approval putting conditions on that are not on there now?
If we do that, then we will know that it will stay, that it will always be there. Because I am worried also, I have a feeling that this group will stay there for a long time. But down the road, you never know. And if I'm going to make a commitment to them, I want to make sure that I'm also making a commitment to the neighborhood, that they know that we see them, that we hear them.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how we put that into language that we get the board's support and the staff's approval, that it's workable.
May I ask a question of Sue?
Sure.
Sue, I just want to be fully understanding that what we are supposed to ask ourselves here today is about this application. And what I said about we don't know who's going to continue this particular use in the future is sort of, I'm thinking that is that outside of our, we're supposed to be considering this application.
Right, but it's the application for the use, and so to put it real succinctly, it's about the what, not the who. And so if it's granted for tonight, it can be for the Evans, it can be for any other entity. So if you do want to put conditions such as some parking, in addition to striping or registering the vehicle, whatever, you can tie that to the special exception that would be imposed on the property, and so a subsequent user would have to adhere to it as well. But yeah, zoning is about what, it's not about who.
Okay, and I'm kind of lost in all this paper, maybe from Ann, get a reminder of the findings as far as whether the material for the application is complete. We've already established that. But the criteria for approval in this specific case, can I get that sort of boiled down for me? Because
Yeah, let me bring up the slides
Thank you.
again.
And I just want to ask a question about possible language for this concern. Approving this conditioned on the fact that the owner would be obligated to provide 17 off-site parking places through a permit process or whatever, but that the applicant who said they were leaning that way would be required to provide 17 off-site parking spaces through a permit process or whatever.
That's what it sounds like to me, yes.
Yeah.
except
But what if they don't need them?
that's,
If this is a nonprofit, I think that
Obviously, if they don't need them, then,
that they must provide parking spaces for,
Residents over 17
yeah,
in number, not age, yeah.
yeah, that they must provide parking somewhere else. They must provide designated parking for any number over 17 cars.
We're really starting to get complicated here because off-site parking, where would that off-site parking be? In a parking ramp? Where are they going to find this? So are they going to provide off-site parking in a ramp 10 blocks away? Is that a reasonable condition for the residents of this particular location?
and I'm wondering,
Yeah, are they still going to try and do what everybody else does, skirt around? I've got this permit to park over here at X ramp, but I really want to park closer. They've already got the ramp lot, but still, I can go cruise the streets and whatever. I'm not sure this is a solution, a condition that is a solution.
well, Well, it sort of sounds like when I was in college and living in the dorm, and I had parking at the lot clear out by the sports center, but I found parking on the streets.
Yeah.
I'm very self-conscious about creating a solution that's not really a solution to the problem. That it sounds good on paper, but it doesn't really solve the
Right.
problem.
Right, yeah. So I'm going to look at this. Okay, demonstrated that a specific use has unique characteristics such that the amount of parking required is either excessive, which it doesn't seem like it's excessive, or will reduce the ability to use or occupy an historic property in a manner that will preserve its attributes. And we can say, I mean, in my opinion, requiring an additional 17 spaces would reduce the ability to use or occupy this property.
Yes, especially its historic, aesthetic, and cultural attributes.
Exactly.
No, I agree.
So we may grant a special exception to reduce by up to 50%. And then the question is, do we want to do it? Have we established, so now maybe it's time to vote on whether or not we agree that requiring 17 spaces will reduce the ability to use or occupy an historic property, therefore, okay.
I do not feel like we can obligate the applicant to add parking spaces. I think that defeats the purpose of the code here. Is there an alternative for a perceived problem? I don't want to sound unsympathetic, but I don't think this application exacerbates the current problem in any noticeable way. I just don't see that. And this is coming from a guy whose first house in Iowa City was on Dodge Street and went through a whole apartment demolition. That allowing 40 people, 46 people in this place with 17 parking places is not going to change the problem in that neighborhood or exacerbate it in any noticeable degree. That's what I believe. And I would just approve it as is.
I think we're all familiar with the problems of parking in Iowa City. And it's not a problem that the applicant has brought in upon themselves.
That there are advantages to approving this as presented. The advantages of that are mitigating against the possible problems. I think this is the right application for this site at this time under these conditions and these restrictions. So if somebody wants to propose specific amendments to the conditions of the motion, we can get it out and we can discuss those. I just don't see any feasible conditions we can impose right now.
Would it be, as part of a rental permit, there has to be a contact person?
Yes.
Yeah, and if there's going to be on-site adults, older adults, responsible, I mean, as long, I think at the bottom of this is an issue of accountability and who you can contact that's actually going to, in this particular instance, as with every property, if you can find somebody who's accountable and who'll take care of the problem, that's a lot. I just can't think of a condition, I mean, you need a contact person already. We could require that the person be one of the on-site managers, but who's going to track that?
I remember when there were problems in my neighborhood, the contact person I looked for was the owner of the property, not the resident of the property.
Right.
And then I would call an owner of a property at 2 in the morning if I had to, and if he lived in another city. That's just, it's one of those individual things that people do under circumstances, and we're looking for a way to codify a solution here, and I don't see it to that particular problem.
And if you file a complaint with the city about whether it's garbage or anything, it goes to the owner of the property.
I would like to think that you could pick up the phone and call somebody at that house and address the problem at that moment, at that time.
But I don't think that that's under this board's jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think we're kind of, I mean, it seems to me we have, this is it.
Right.
Can we answer yes to this? I can.
Yes, I can. I will be voting in favor of it.
I'm sorry,
I will be voting in favor of it, yes.
as is.
Correct,
Okay.
with no conditions.
Julie?
Yes, as will I. I just don't know what the right condition is.
I will as well.
Can I abstain?
There isn't a vote yet, but if there's 3 of you, you should probably go with the findings of fact, and then there can be a vote on the resolution, and then
Somebody go ahead.
Nancy can decide how she wants to vote.
Okay.
Okay, so
Findings of fact.
let me just do it
I
again.
keep losing that language. Oh, here we go.
Here it is, no changes from staff report recommendations. I am not the one to read it.
Sure.
I'll read it. Regarding item EXC 250003, lost my place. I concur with the findings set forth in the staff report.
July the
Am I
9th.
right? Of July 9th, thank you, 2025, and conclude that the general and specific standards are satisfied. Unless amended or opposed by another board member, I recommend that the board adopt the findings in the staff report for the approval of this application.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Findings of fact. Nancy, you want to talk before the vote or after the vote? You want to explain your vote before we call the vote?
Okay. I would like to, I would hope that this group would be respectful of the neighborhood, and I think they probably will be, but I want to make sure that the neighborhood has a voice and that they know that we hear them and we appreciate what they put up with on a daily basis. We deal with this for an hour here. They deal with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I respect that. And I hope that Evans respects that. And I want to make that known clearly, that that is my concern. It is not that I don't want to see this happen, because I do. I think this is probably the best solution for this building. I just don't want the neighbors to be negatively affected by it.
Any other discussion? Call the vote?
Baker,
Yes.
Carlson,
Can I abstain?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Russo, Swigert,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Motion is declared approved. Any person desiring to appeal this decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days after this decision is filed with the city clerk's office. Thank you very much to everybody involved.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is discussion of city land development fees. Ann, you want to?
Yeah, I didn't prepare any slides for this, but this was a request that the board made, I feel like it was several months ago at this point, when you discussed the drive-through at 21 Sturgis Corner, and there was a condition that staff recommended about paying a fee for the sidewalk to be installed by the city at a later date, and there were lots of questions about how the city accepts fees. So the memo that I prepared just gives some other examples of fees that the city collects and how they're spent. Some have deadlines for when the fees need to be spent, like our neighborhood open space fee, which is collected and then must be spent within 5 years. We have other examples, like our affordable housing in lieu fee, which applies in our riverfront crossings district, where we accumulate the fund, and there's no deadline for when it needs to be spent. I did give a couple other examples. One's our parking in lieu fee. There's no deadline for when that must be spent. And then cost sharing for street upgrades, which happen at the subdivision process, where in certain instances, staff will recommend approval of a subdivision, but the applicant must provide a fee to the city for future construction of a roadway, or sharing the cost of a future construction of a roadway that the city will take on at a later date. So there are several examples of the city collecting fees where there are no kind of deadlines set for when the fees must be spent.
Okay. Discussion?
When I read this over, this summary, it was really very helpful. But the question that I remained with was, what mechanism triggered our ability to require a fee for installing a sidewalk? It wasn't a subdivision approval. It wasn't a neighborhood open space. It wasn't any of these examples specifically. So is there another avenue to collecting fees that's more broad and vague?
I guess the example with the 21 Sturgis Corner was a condition of the approval of the special exception. So staff recommended the fee in that instance, and we could probably also recommend a fee as part of a rezoning, a condition of a rezoning.
Okay, so it was the condition of the, all right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Ann, can I get some clarification on these? And thank you very much for providing this. It seems like a long time ago than this first came up. On the neighborhood open space fee, it says, fees collected must be spent within 5 years within the specific parkland district, period, or what? What happens after 5 years?
And then they have to go back to whoever, then they have to go back. We have to return them.
The fees returned,
Yeah.
good, okay. And on the affordable housing in lieu fee, there's no deadline by which the fees must be spent. So 5 years return, no deadline, then the money is kept in perpetuity.
Until we spend it.
Okay. Parking in lieu, the developer must pay a fee for each space otherwise required. I'm familiar with this because we did this a lot in planning and zoning. So that fee goes to the parking system in general. They get a spot, but it's.
They pay the fee to not provide a space on site, and then the city uses that money in their parking ramps.
Okay, but that doesn't guarantee the developer a specific spot. It's just he's contributing to the overall system.
Yeah, they don't get a spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then at the end of that, there's no deadline by which the fees must be spent. So do you have any idea of what's being currently held, the amount of money that's currently being held that's with no deadlines? Is there any idea of how much money we're talking about?
I don't know what it is for parking, but for the affordable housing in lieu fee, it's a significant amount of money. It's millions of dollars. And the reason for that is, I mean, we're spending it on an affordable housing project.
Okay.
We have to buy land. We have to construct a multifamily. That's millions of dollars. So we need to accumulate a significant amount of money before we can actually spend
Well,
it.
and I don't disagree with that. My original concern was based on the idea that the city was taking money in advance for work that was to be done specifically back on the site of the development.
In the right-of-way, not on the site, in the city's right-of-way.
At a
But
later date.
it wasn't, it was they were paying their share for future development, right? That didn't have a schedule, but that we were taking the money for future development. My question is, why isn't it just as easy that when you do the actual work, you assess that property, the fee then?
We don't do that. Coralville does, we just don't do special assessments like that.
Okay, but Coralville does and we don't.
Right, I mean, we haven't, and I've been here 25 years, I'll bet it's been over 40 years since the city's done a special assessment.
Okay,
We just don't do that.
When there's sidewalk repairs required in Iowa City,
Right.
we send the property owner a bill.
Right, that's a type of assessment, but it's not for the construction of new right-of-way or new sidewalks.
Okay.
It's the repair of an existing sidewalk.
So there's a bookkeeping issue and a financial issue. We're not spending the money until we actually do the right-of-way work, right? So we don't need the money before then.
Right?
So, but when the work is done, somebody could be assessed the cost of their share of that work, right?
There are special assessment processes that can go through. They are cumbersome, they are expensive, and owners don't like it. And so the city's always done the
So
work.
if the owner is given a chance, like, you can pay now for work that's going to be done indefinitely in the future, or you can pay when the work is done, you say the owners prefer to pay in advance?
No, I'm saying that's how the city does it. Plus, if the right-of-way gets put in 5 years, the current owner may not own the property.
That's why it would be a lien on the property, wouldn't it? You could do that in the process of approving it.
Well,
Lien is the right word, I don't know.
right, but it's the work is to be done not on your property, it's to be done on the right-of-way, and there's no way to do a future lien on somebody else on city right-of-way.
May I speak from an enforcement recollection? It's a lot better guarantee to get that money up front, number one. And number two, it seems to me that it would behoove the city to do the work sooner, to not delay it unnecessarily, because that fee's going to be based on the 2025 cost of labor and materials. And so if it's 2030 when we do it, that's it might be half of what it costs, or it might be 75% of what it costs in 5 years. But I just think practically speaking, it's much simpler for the city to get the money up front as a condition of getting a building permit than it is to try to chase it down later.
Okay. But
Also,
did you begin by saying that it might be more expensive 5 years after?
Oh, yeah, I mean, labor and materials
So
go up all the
It
time.
would be better for the city to collect the actual expense at that time rather than a lesser amount early?
If it were as easy to collect in 5 years as it is to collect before you can get a building permit, that might be a reasonable argument, but
Okay. but
it
ex-
isn't.
then
So
I-
I'm,
I need to explain
Yeah,
why,
yeah.
why isn't it as easy if it's simply an assessment problem?
well, as Sue said, perhaps it's a different owner, and you assess it against the owner, and they say, I refused to pay. This wasn't part of my deal in building this restaurant. I had nothing to do with that. I wasn't aware of that, blah, blah, blah. It gets dragged on and on and on and on.
Why couldn't the new owner, if it's a lien or attachment against the original permission, why wouldn't that new owner know he's responsible for that?
This is a human being thing. It's not a cut and dried, everybody's a rational human being thing. The farther distant away you get from a person having achieved their goal, in this case, a building permit, okay, they want that building permit, and you're 90% likely to get very little argument against an extra fee at the time. If it's holding up a building permit, you're going to get that money. 5 years down the road, it's just harder. People dig in their heels. And how, I mean, I think it just makes sense to assess the cost at the time of development. It's just easier to get. And I guess I'm pointing out the disincentive of the city to delay to offset the impression that we're going to take $6,500 and put it in an interest-bearing account, which we don't do anyway, right? That's illegal. And, benefit somehow by having that cash money. It's more to our benefit to get it spent
Well,
than sit on it. We have no incentive.
why couldn't you require, you're collecting the money up front, okay, require that the owner, the applicant, put that money into an escrow account, which might indeed draw interest on the money back to them, but the original sum still goes to the city. Is that feasible?
It's increasingly complicated. And accountability is a big factor in this. And the initial applicant has more accountability than somebody down the line further.
I'm,
Escrows also don't work because we get escrows for like landscaping. Julie's familiar with this. When, a site plan is approved, they're supposed to put in landscaping. They can't put it in because the timing's off, so they give us money. And then we'll give them a temporary certificate of occupancy saying, okay, you're going to give us the cost, 110% of the cost of the landscaping. And then we're going to hold on to that. But we'll give it back to you, but you got to put the landscaping in. We can't do that with the sidewalk because the applicant is not the one responsible for putting in the sidewalk, it's the city.
Actual construction. Yeah, the only way, I can think of one alternative to requiring the fee at the time of building permit, and that is requiring it at the time of issuance of the first certificate of occupancy. It pushes it down the line a little bit, maybe gets closer slightly to actual construction costs in the future, but not by much. It's just, the more time, the farther you kick that can down the road, the harder it becomes to actually get the money.
okay. I think I'm going to get off my horse and let it go. Call me Don Quixote.
Okay.
No, thank you very much, Ann, and thank you. Any other discussion on this issue? If not, we'll have a consideration of the meeting of the minutes from March the 12th.
What's the last time?
Any suggestions, revisions, corrections?
Nope.
If not, move that we adopt the minutes
I move we adopt the minutes.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anything else? If not, move to adjourn.
And even if we're adjourned, I'm just going to make a quick statement to everybody. The state passed a bill that requires all board and commission members to attend a training. It'll be probably 90 minutes. The state information, IPEB information, public information, the state is putting together some type of training. And so there'll be more information coming to you folks.
Will there be refreshments?
I don't know if it's going to be online, if it's going to be, I don't know how they're going to do it.
Online.
But,
Thank you.
yeah.
I still want refreshments.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
It always takes longer than you think.
Oh, training.
Yeah, Paul, I was just telling that the state passed a bill that all city council members and all board and commission members have to attend a 90-minute training. And so all that, and the state's developing the training, so we don't have any more information. I just want to make sure that all board and commission members are aware that that's coming down the pike.
Okay.
And it's a must, and it's a shall. So. And they passed the minutes without you.
I can hardly.
And we are adjourned. All right, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.